all have the ability to manifest. This idea of manifestation, I'm really, really interested in,
Mhm.
and I love talking about and thinking about it, which is like respectful manipulation almost of
Mm.
the field or of life in general. It's like what we think about, we can actually go attain and go create. And we are here to create.
And today, as you mentioned, you're the guest, and I'm the guest host. And I'm going to be probing you on all the different things that you've learned and the angles you've taken in this really impressive journey.
Hello, my name is Aaron Wexler, and welcome to a very special episode of Within the Game. Let's go! Within the Game is all about sharing inspiration, and I'm just so happy to have you guys here along this podcast journey. It's just been so fun and just this constant, beautiful exploration of curiosity and manifesting and energy and how to play within the game of life. And today's episode is a really cool, special episode as I look back on the last 100 episodes. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing to say, right? I remember episode one, and here we are, episode 101. And today's guest is actually a guest host, a good friend of mine, Dr. Kaveh Navab. Dr. Kaveh, I just appreciate you for being here and being a part of this journey, man.
It's one of those win-wins, Wex. For me, I love being here. I love following your work. You're an inspiration to me, not just because you do inspiring things, but you take it one level further and then investigate what it is to be inspired through all the different lenses of all the different great guests you've had. And today, as you mentioned, you're the guest, and I'm the guest host. And I'm going to be probing you on all the different things that you've learned and the angles you've taken in this really impressive journey.
Thank you so much. And before we really jump into stuff, I just for the audience, Kaveh has been a very close friend along the way, but not just personally, but professionally. We've had so many conversations, both on and off the record, about so many different cool things. And I really admire you, Kaveh, for your own curiosity and your attention to details and your compassion and empathy to others and your ability to tap into the field, so to
Thank
speak.
you.
And I love that we can integrate the pragmatic, the real, and also the invisible. And I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But yeah, for the audience, I appreciate you guys for being here. And I'm actually gonna turn it over to Dr. Kaveh here as the guest host. So take it away.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is exactly right. We're interested here in things that are, in a way, common sense. Like you said, some things are invisible, like feelings and thoughts, but they're very much relevant to how our life unfolds. Lessons, for instance. The first question I would have is about lessons. In a way, you can say those are invisible, but they are so important. So, as far as your work, what are some of the lessons, top three lessons you've learned on your journey to 101 podcasts?
Wow, it's crazy to think about that. First of all, this is kind of strange for me to be kind of a guest on my own show, but this is pretty cool, kind of unique. So I'm just going to start with some appreciation. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate the audience, and I appreciate this whole journey. Yeah, the top three lessons, man. Like, you know, the first thing I think of right away is just I mentioned that curiosity piece, right? Like this whole journey for me, Kaveh, has just been like an enhancement of my own curiosity. And it's in a reinforcement of the beauty in staying curious, right? So I think that's the first one. It just kind of creates that humility right away. Like we just, there's so much to learn. And like the joy of learning and the joy of exploring is just, it's constant and never ending. So I think that's the first thing, because that's relatable to everyone on the planet, right? Every single person going through a human experience, which we all are. It's just there's so much to learn. So that curiosity is number one. The second one that comes to mind is that idea of fear, which you and I have talked about so much, and happy to talk more about it. But yeah, looking back, there's two episodes that come to mind. Of course, Dr. Michael Gervais, which I bring up so much because he's opened my eyes so much. Doctor of psychology, and um, he talks about that no FOPO, no fear of other people's
Hmm.
opinions. And I told you before, I used to have a big case of that when it comes to like this process, being on camera and being vulnerable, and also sharing music and art. Um, but being able to blast through FOPO
Hmm.
is a big lesson. And also Laird Hamilton, who talks about fear, a big wave writer, and perhaps maybe the best big wave writer of all time. He talks about going right through fear. It's not like we're ignoring the fear, but it's like acknowledging fear, and it's like, yeah, let's go through it and not avoid it. So I think that's another lesson there. And then another one, since you asked for three, another lesson would be that we all have the ability to manifest. This idea of manifestation, I'm really, really interested in, and I love talking about and thinking about it, which is like respectful manipulation almost of
Hmm.
the field or of life in general. It's like what we think about, we can actually go attain and go create. And we are here to create, right? Or manifest. Um, and also, too, we're not here for the manifestations so much, but we are here for the manifesting, which is a kind of
Love
a,
it.
a clear distinction. So,
Yeah, if I'm gonna just riff on those for a few minutes to reflect them back to you, I heard you say curiosity slash humility, the student mindset, interested in how the world works, how we influence each other. I think of it also as a physician, as a healer, what it means to harm a self, including my own self, and what it means to help a self, and staying curious about that because sometimes we could be doing harm without knowing it.
yeah.
And if we're not curious about that, then we may keep going through the world kind of blindly causing harm without getting that feedback. So for me, that's what that humility and that curiosity really has to do with. Going through fear also relevant. Maybe I'm afraid of finding out that I'm doing some harm or I'm not being as helpful as I can. But if I can go through that fear, I can get to the core truth of something. And I know that you have helped so many people with your podcast, with your investigation into what it is to be inspired, what it is to be alive, and as we spoke about offline, what it is to not die with your music stuck inside of you, right?
Right.
And that's because the third point is we are
Yeah.
here to create music, and what is music but organized and coherent vibrations layered on top of each other,
Yeah.
right? So as we go through the rest of the conversation, I think these are some themes we're going to revisit because we live in a world where there's a lot of conflict. Men versus women, rich versus poor, scientists versus artists, and this question of vibrations and frequencies and the tone or the feeling of a room or a person is something that has a lot of value in it, but people are also very skeptical of speaking in that language or of people who speak in that language. And I think both of us are sort of one foot in the sort of materialist, scientific, grounded world, and then one world in the realm of possibility and the world of imagination and creativity.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that just made me think of this idea of playing.
Mhm.
It comes back to the title of the show, Within the Game, or even the
Right.
book, the Inspired Athlete, which is, yes, it's going for mastery, and yes, it's going for manifesting what we want, but there's this concept of fun and playing and exploring that I think is a big theme of the show, of how I like to think of inspired living. That question I keep asking, which is like, what does that mean? Well, it means going for it, but it also means playing and having fun and not being afraid of a mistake or a failure. And I think that's key. I actually heard Kevin Hart talk about that a long time ago on some interview, and he was like, it's all a game. Life is a game. It's how do you play the game that gets interesting.
You could consider that that might sound to some people, especially people who are uptight, like it's not serious enough, right? Maybe we have a lot of privilege, you and me, to be able to consider it a game, but someone who is in a worse position than us it might be a life or death struggle. And yet I would suggest that even that person could see it as a game. That to survive, in their case, would be to win that game that day.
Mm,
Because all of us are ultimately having the baseline question of, am I going to survive today or not? And on top of that, we can build higher and higher expectations of what's possible. But without the success or the scoring a goal of survival, getting that next glass of water, getting that next meal, making that next friend, all of which can definitely be considered to be scores or wins.
yeah. That's a great point, and I want to stay humble as I keep exploring for the next 100 episodes, right? I want to keep
Uh-huh.
exploring this idea of the game and like within the game and like how do we play and to your point, yeah, I mean, if and I've been there too, like if we're not in thrive state or like inspired living or like maybe we're just in survival state, just trying to
Scarcity.
make it scarcity,
Yeah.
right? Like I totally do respect that. Um, and I think that there's a way to play while we're in those states. Can we see the bigger picture, the bigger picture of what's going on? I always like to zoom out. I think going back to your first question, like what's one of the lessons? Um, you asked for the top three, but there's so many, right? Like one of the big lessons that I've learned with this whole journey of exploration, of curiosity, of manifesting, of this idea of the game, right, is this zoom out, right? And if you can zoom out, if we have the ability to create this perspective and you see like and this is just a quick little exercise that I like to do almost every day, which is like
Mhm.
zooming out from Los Angeles, zooming out to see California, zoom out to see United States, zoom out to see the planet, and then you see that we're just kind of floating in space, right? And I just like that idea because it just brings a smile to my face because it's like, whoa, there's so much going on and we get so caught up in our little day-to-days. If I can create that big perspective, then like all the small things become even more so of a joyful game, even when we're in scarcity or even when we're in that kind of tough place.
What I'm hearing from you is about the miracle of life, which transcends whether we're winning or losing.
Yeah.
That just the opportunity to play the game, to learn from the losses, to take lessons from the losses, which not everyone can do all the time because we start taking ourselves too seriously. We get into self-pity, which I am no stranger to. But your message, your podcast tells me that I don't have to stay there, that I am less useful to my fellow human being, to the people who either do or could potentially need me when I'm holed up in my shell, worried about poor me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I want to share this too. I don't think I've ever shared this before, but um when I was thinking of, launching this podcast, I was thinking of titles, and one of them was, and I almost went with this, was the tools within, right? And like trying to figure out how to create a tool belt that I could just walk around life. I could play the game of life and that I could constantly add another part, almost like Batman. Like Batman's got his like yellow belt, and he always has like a tool for a certain situation. Like I was thinking, well, what if I could create that tool belt for me that I could use specifically when I'm in those lower vibrational states or those emotions that aren't so fun, frustration, sadness, anger. Like how can I create a tool belt where maybe I could reach for a tool, and that specific thing, whatever that thing is, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's, deep breathing exercises, whatever the thing was, maybe that tool could help me to kind of raise my frequency and, you know, step more into myself and help me play the game better.
And that makes you more attractive, more valuable, more useful to others. And it brings us back to the topic of invisible but
Mm,
valuable things. Because
yeah,
those tools, the internal toolbox, would not be visible until you did something like generated a PDF as a digital product that you could then link people to in the bottom of these show notes so that they could actually see, oh, what are the tools that Aaron has built live over the course of 100 episodes? Because
right.
essentially you've been talking to experts, masters, professionals, people who have an outsized effect on how reality unfolds,
Yeah.
and they have been blessing us, your audience, with all the tools that they've used to overcome self-doubt, the haters, people who discourage them,
Yeah.
setbacks, adversity. So that could bring us to the next question, which is what setbacks have you experienced? What disappointments or failures or adversities have you experienced in episodes 1 through 100? You can give us again, one, two, or three of those that in response to which you've developed some tools that will help you deal with them more expediently the next time you run into those same problems.
Wow, great question. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is like rejection.
Yeah,
Fear,
of course.
and
You've
it
been
used to be,
rejected?
yeah, and it used to be a fear of rejection, and I don't call it fear of rejection anymore because I still get rejected. Yeah, absolutely. I reach
Right.
out to a lot of people. One of the most common questions I get from aspiring podcasters or other podcasters or just some of my friends and family, they're like, how'd you get such and such? Or how'd you get that
Oh,
person? Right. And I always respond like, I asked.
I asked.
I asked them, I reached out. But what a lot of people don't realize is I get a lot of crickets back, right? I get a lot of crickets or you know, some people, are very, very respectful when they say respectfully, well, we're gonna decline the invitation, and I'm like, that's awesome. I really appreciate that. That's way better than crickets,
Yeah, true.
because the crickets. We are kind of in this crickets culture. I feel like right
So
now,
true. We
right? If you don't
ghost
want to
each other.
respond to someone, you just ghost them. It's like the ghosting culture or the cancel culture,
Yeah.
and I don't like that. I grew up with the understanding that manners over everything. Be
Uh-huh.
respectful. Professional and respectful communication. That goes back to number one, right? That's another one of my big lessons with this whole project.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, dealing with rejection. How do you deal with rejection? And I think at first it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. I was like, oh, really? But now I'm like, no worries, all good, because I do have that empathy now where I'm like, everyone's busy. People are working on their own projects. People are in other people's orbits or trying to get them in their orbits, and that happens all the time. So I don't take anything personal anymore. Maybe I used to a little bit, but that's the first thing that comes to mind when you ask about setbacks. The next one that comes to mind is the
Mm.
technology,
Tell me about it.
right? Like, and for anyone who's listening out there who might relate with the tech, I mean, we're bombarded with tech more than ever now, right?
Right.
Like, how do I use, I mean, this is all through Zoom. How do I use Zoom? What are the right settings? What kind of, lighting do I get? What kind of microphone do I get? Do I need to upgrade my plan? Yeah, and on and on and on. And I can go on about YouTube and Instagram and all these platforms and all. I'll just call all of that tech. I used to let that kind of hold me back. And I realized through this journey, that's all part of it. It's all part of it. It will continue to be
Yeah.
part of it as now we
Yeah.
get into the AI,
Yeah.
part of society, which is definitely taking over.
For sure.
So that was one of the setbacks too, tech. And I've learned to kind of just accept that there's always going to be a learning curve to the next thing. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Can I play
Yeah.
with that? Can I have fun with that? So that was that comes to mind. And if I have another one, it would be um yeah, it would be like image. What's my image? What do I look like?
Ah, nice.
What am I gonna be thought of? Not so much like FOPO, like fear of people's opinions, but just like
Right.
like maybe spending too much time in that. So the distinction is like I'm not afraid of that, but maybe the setback is like I allocate too much time and mind space to
It's
that.
our
Whereas
old friend
now,
vanity.
right, and whereas now I look at that as a setback, but now I see that as like that's I don't really need to spend any time with that.
Mm.
Like I don't I if I get there, if I go there emotionally or like psychologically, I'm like, that's out of my control, you
Mm.
know? I don't worry about those things. So yeah, maybe I did for a while, and now that I'm here, looking back on 100 episodes, I don't worry about those things anymore.
So there's two places I want to take from here
Yeah.
while we linger on these three issues. You said rejection, the crickets versus getting respectfully declined, the tech, and then moving from the tech being something that you're upset about to being okay with it to even having fun with it. I really want to go
Yeah.
back across that. And then the third one is, yeah, vanity. How do I look? And
Mhm.
well, you know, I'm going to look how I look and I'm going to attract the right people, the people who like how I look, who like how I sound. And who knows, maybe you could even learn something from the people who don't like how you look. If you reach that level of not taking things personally, that you could even be grateful for rejection,
Mhm.
grateful for criticism or redirection. I think that that bodes very well for you and the people in your orbit, because to me, that's the description of sportsmanship. No hard feelings either way, humility in both winning and in losing. So, what I really appreciate about your answers is that there's an answer and like a second layer to
Hmm.
every one of those three. So, we could go there and talk about each of those a little bit more, where the failure or the rejection in the crickets has that second layer of there being a kind of humanity and interaction that's still there in the experience of someone declining the offer. The tech going from being upset about something to actually being happy about that very same thing, which is the alchemy of your attitude. And then finally, the notion that you're just investing time and attention into different things. You could invest them in trying to look a certain way, sound a certain way, appeal to a certain person, or you could invest the time and energy into cultivating your interests, exploring who you want to be talking to, who you want to be on your podcast, and let the chips fall where they may.
What's coming to mind right now, Kaveh, is authenticity, right?
Hmm.
Like just that word and the vibe on that, the feeling of
Yeah.
authenticity. Like, because
Yeah.
when I first started this, yes, I was definitely authentic in my approach to writing a book, right? Like,
Okay.
um, and doing this show, I was authentic, but I will admit definitely a couple things here. I definitely had comparison syndrome, 100%. I
Mhm.
do still sometimes, and what that means is like you just compare yourself to the other podcaster who has the bigger audience or
Yeah.
who has the nicer background or whatever the thing is. I'm comparing or the nicer voice or looks
Okay.
better. So that, and then imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
which is like a good thing at first because you're kind of almost pretending that you are someone who you're not. And then
You want a
after a
new
while,
identity. Yeah.
yeah, but after a while that could be a dangerous road because that's not quite authentic, right?
Hmm.
So like when you're first getting started, maybe it is good to be like, yeah, I'm a podcaster. I can be like Joe Rogan. Here we go. Let's go. It's like a little bit imposter syndrome. But then you start to find your own voice. You start to find your own flow. Here's a quick tip too. Speaking of authentic, for me, I found that Fridays at 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific was like my time. That was like my
Wow.
time to do this.
Beautiful.
Like that one thing, authentically, that just worked for me. I
Yeah.
asked if that works for my guest, and looking back on the last 100, yeah, I shifted that a little bit. I was flexible there, but authentically, that was the right time for me to be able to kind of put my other projects aside and dedicate my time and effort and energy to this project. So that's just like one little example of being like I'm authentically knowing, I know that that time in my calendar is the right time and place for this. And then the other part of that, real quick, that I'll share is like I recently went to and shout out David Meltzer. I went out to a David Meltzer
Mastermind.
mastermind recently, this past week actually, and I asked about differentiating factors for business. And Bucky O'Neill, again, shout out Bucky, who's kind of like this awesome meditation transformative coach, basically. His answer was so cool, and it relates to this. His answer was using your God-given talent is your
Mm,
differentiating factor. It's
mm,
not about what other people are doing,
mm.
what other people are doing. Awesome. Good for them.
Yeah.
Maybe, and looking back on my guests too, like, yeah, they're all awesome. I've been able to be inspired and motivated by them. But at the end of the day, coming back to the authenticity, this is just who I am. This is who I am. This is the talents that I was given, and I'm following a nudge. And I think that
Mm,
all leads to authenticity, right? I'm following a nudge, like an internal, or you could even say a higher power nudge.
mm.
And if you follow that nudge, that usually leads, I think, in my opinion, to more and more authenticity. And I think that comes through. Hey everyone, thanks so much for being a fan of the show. I really appreciate your support. And if you'd like to further support the podcast, please grab a copy of my book, The Inspired Athlete. The Inspired Athlete is all about my personal growth journey, my athletic journey, my spiritual journey, all combined into one. And really, the idea is that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us all, and it's up to us to evoke that. And whether you consider yourself an athlete or a competitor or not, it's my belief that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us. Even if you just decide to take a deep breath and just move your body, that's the inspired athlete. So it would mean a lot if you could help support the book project as well as the podcast by grabbing a copy. Links to the Amazon paperback version as well as the Audible audiobook version are listed below in the description. Thank you very much for your support. Stay inspired, y'all.
Hmm. In your opinion and in your experience, also in my experience, there is a kind of humility to listening to the voices, looking for signs or messages in terms of what should I do next and what should I avoid, because it does take some kind of a openness, a student mindset to not just do whatever you think is right, whatever I think is right, but to take into account the feedback that we're getting from the places and people in our lives that we trust. So you brought up the higher self, and I think that could be a very interesting place to take this conversation. You also brought up the um, uh, the authenticity, which brought to my mind the word integrity. And
Mm,
then you brought up the word imitation, and I thought about that in contrast to integrity. Because, well, if it's someone else's thing that you're doing, if you're comparing yourself to what they're doing, well, it's their talents that you're trying to, and it's a losing game ultimately. It might help at the very beginning to have an archetype, have a role model, have a mentor that you're kind of looking up to when trying to do something like what they're doing, but that's what I like to think of as an external locus of control. And
right.
over time, we bring that locus of control inward. And over time, we actually become the external locus of control for other people. That
Yeah.
seems like a natural progression from going from dependent on what's going on around us to independent or free to ultimately being dependable or reliable and therefore more valuable and more attractive to others in an organic, authentic way that has maximal integrity.
Yes. And can I just do a quick pause right now and just say how fun this is and how cool this
Uh,
is? And
mm,
like if anyone's feeling Dr. Kaveh's vibe and messaging, go check out Clean Stamina. I should have said that in the introductions, but like you are, Dr. Kaveh, I want to push this back. I want to like flip this just for 1 second
of
because
course.
I'm having fun with this right now.
That's an honor.
I mean, you have been able. The reason why I love you so much is not just because we're homies, but you have this ability to kind of break things down, like what you just said, like from dependent to independent to dependable. I love that. I love that. I mean, I always told you like part of the reason, one of the driving factors for this whole show for me has been like time freedom, money freedom, positive impact, right? Those are
Yeah,
like my driving factors. And when I hear you talk about that dependent, independent, dependable, like I definitely want to be independent and one day dependable. And hopefully
yes.
I'm there, I'm getting there in certain areas, but like I just love your frameworks is what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I love your
Thank you.
frameworks and the way you can frame your ideas. And it's like tennis, the way
Yeah.
that you and I communicate and we can just throw these ideas and frameworks back. So I just had to take that moment, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate the way you create frameworks of ideas, and I love the way that you are so attracted to the idea of healing
Mhm.
and dependable for healing
Mhm.
for others, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. And so, on that note, since we're doing a little soft plug, I
Mhm.
got this great domain, itstherapeutic.com, and I'm going to start posting there. And
Cool.
so it's going to be essentially about this thing called the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take. We have to do an oath to do no harm. Why? Because we know so well how the human body works. In order to heal it, we have to have access to a lot of powerful tools, uh, drugs and knives and needles and all kinds of things that can also do a lot of harm. So that extrapolates to all of life. To understand how to help a person, you have to just know how a person works.
Yeah.
But once you know how a person works, that also opens up the possibility of harming them. And so that's why our heart needs to be in the right place. We can't be coming from an insecure and scarcity minded place, lest we start to, even if it's only incidentally or accidentally, harm other people with our capacity to influence them. So
Yeah.
it's a great responsibility to have an audience, to have people who listen to us, to have people who follow us. I have a wife and one child and another child on the way. And so I take great responsibility for the future generations that I'm going to be having a rippling impact on
Yeah.
through the ways that I conduct myself.
You know, it reminds me of a Kobe Bryant quote, and like he was number one on my list of like who I wanted to talk to in terms of inspired athletes, who I just looked up to over the, as I grew up, and um, RIP, fly free, Kobe.
In peace.
Um,
That's right.
but but he said greatness is to inspire the person next to you, and that's kind of what it made me think of when you speak about healing and you speak about your family even, and kind of reminds me of like this whole theme, like part of the reason why I'm doing it, part of the reason why I've been able to publish 100 episodes, right? And this again, this will be 101, but it's to follow that. Like if I could just inspire one person from this show, like with one tool, with one mindset shift, with one thing, I would be stoked. I'd be
Yes.
happy, right? And I just want to make that point because that's what you're doing. You do that just kind of that's how you roll. You're like maybe if one person can, feel a little bit better today, right? Coming from a healing perspective or even, inspired. Can I inspire them with just a little bit of a mindset shift or something like that? I think that's a cool way to roll, man. I do, you know.
What that brings me to big picture is this notion that, oh, we should stay away from toxic people. You should get toxic people out of your life. And while that has its place, there is something else on the other side of that, which is if you're a healer, if you have the capacity to have a therapeutic influence on the people around you and not be negatively affected by their toxicity, then that gives them a chance to be positively affected by your tonicity. That's a word that we don't usually hear, but it is a word. Toxin is the opposite of a tonic. If
Mm,
something is toxic, that's the opposite of being tonic. A tonic is something that's helpful. And so you can have a tonic effect on people. You can have a therapeutic effect on people, but you can also have a toxic effect on people, a traumatic effect on people. The answer isn't to isolate ourselves and say, oh, their business is none of my business. Oh, my business is none of their business. That's a very tempting kind of mindset set to occupy. And there is a lot in the ether that's attracting us to the notion that we should be free and independent and atomized and not have anything to do with each other. But that's not the creed of the healer, nor is it the creed of the podcaster. Someone
mhm.
who's out in public who wants to share ideas and wants to bring them to light, especially the more controversial ideas, the more courage it takes to go against the the consensus.
Yeah.
So when I say something like maybe you shouldn't stay away from toxic people, that makes you think, well, what's he talking about? I've never heard that before. But there is a truth there. And if you're not just doing it to troll, if you're not just doing it to merely be provocative, then I think there's a lot of power in going against the status quo consensus.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of all our talks about contrast, right?
That's right.
Like the power of contrast. That's a whole
That's right.
nother conversation. But what I'll share about it right now is like you've really helped me, realize that contrast is a tool. It can be a tool. And for the audience, contrast, what that basically means is the opposite of what's desired, the opposite of what's wanted, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we have polarities. Like we said earlier, we have rich and poor, we have strong and weak, et cetera, et cetera. That's contrast. That's conditionality.
Yeah.
And the idea that everyone should be the same, that there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
These are aspirational, even spiritual ideals, but we don't live in that world. We live in the world of shades of gray between worse and better,
Yeah.
less rich and more rich, less intelligent and more intelligent, less capable, more capable. The good news is that none of those things are fixed.
Yeah.
And each person does have the capacity to grow. Now, I may never be as smart as some people, but like we said earlier, that's not the game. The game is to compete against myself. I am my own worst enemy, best opponent, and therefore best teacher if I am willing to learn from my mistakes. But that takes oftentimes talking with other people about it, leaning on other people because I have so many blind spots. I have vanity. I don't want to look bad. And so I have to actually marry someone, partner up with someone, have work relationships with people who are going to keep me honest. And of course, I don't always like that because my ego wants to look good. But the bigger picture, when you zoom out from LA and from Cali and from the United States, the big picture is really evolution. It's progress. And we don't get that except by feeling the squeeze. A friend said some people wake up when they see the light, and some people wake up when they feel the heat. And so
Mm.
for me, this podcast is really about spreading the light so that less people have to suffer for less long and can move towards inspiration and expansion and ascension faster with that nudge you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is this is so cool because this is kind of like a full circle moment of like because I was thinking a lot about before we did this, like what's kind of one of the main messages I want to share in this, right? I mean, there's so many, right? But what's one of the main ones, like for my personal journey, is like all this stuff we're talking about when it comes to spirituality and personal growth,
Yeah.
and how that relates to a game and maybe even sports. It's that the ultimate game, life, right? Life is the game, but like all these things, like for me, personal growth is the how. Like me, right? I'm always asking that question, how, and like part of my spiritual growth is to worry less about the how and just allow, so to speak,
Mm.
um, and and not prioritize the how. Like part of my entrepreneur in me or the athlete in me is like how. How do I win? How do I win? How do I create success? I think this whole journey, this podcast journey, this interest in the how has led me to, yes, it's very interesting to me to want to know how, and I want to keep exploring the how, but the why has actually become more important. The why
Mm.
has been more of a driving factor. The ability to connect in this way with my brother, like you, or anyone I meet, like the why in that is more important. The why for me is like because we might have the ability to inspire someone, we may have the ability to change someone's course, we
Yeah.
might be able to inspire inspired action. because uninspired action is the contrast to inspired action, right? Uninspired action immediately, my mind goes to like hate and war and like fu energy, right? And inspired action is like it's almost like you're being led from a higher place to a specific piece of action that can help you and others.
Yeah. For me, I think about these three lower emotions, sadness, fear, and anger,
Yeah.
and that those are relatively uninspired compared to peace and love.
Yeah.
And the notion that they are all related to caring is very important because you don't actually have to eviscerate or dismiss those lower emotions to reach for the higher ones. In fact, I just think of it as being at peace with being angry, at peace with being sad or scared. So then my peace is inclusive of the lower or smaller states. But those lower or smaller states don't run the show. They are evolutionarily conserved across all kinds of species. There's a reason to be scared, there's a reason to be angry, there's a reason to be sad, but we don't want to let those fight or flight or freeze impulses run the show. Those are not inspired states. Those are not the kinds of things we would want for ourselves, for our friends, for our patients, for our children. And so the direct path out is part of my why because
Mm.
life is precious and we don't want to spend more time than we have to in states that are harmful to ourselves and others.
And you know, you just helped me so much, and you continue to with this idea of ER, emotional regulation, and EQ, emotional intelligence, and all this. And this is such a big part of the show and of my learning through this podcast of like that almost goes back to the how, right? Like how do these top performers, whether they're in sports or business or doctors. I love talking to doctors if you don't know that already, right? I love the
I get
doctor
that
mindset.
sense.
Well, the
Yeah.
doctor mindset is like, how can I help? How can I assist?
Yeah.
How can I heal? Right? That's the immediate first doctor mindset. I love that. I really resonate with that. But that emotional control and emotional regulation is a huge just part of how do I play the game of life, or how do I be the best craftsman? Because that's a big part of within the game, whether you're an athlete or a business person or an artist, right? How do I play with that ER and EQ? You know,
Well, the journey of mastery is really what I'm hearing from you right now. And we can talk about it in the emotional sense that I want to have mastery over my emotions. It's not that I don't want to have fear, anger, or sadness, but I go from my childhood, being a baby, and having those emotions just flooding over me without any sense of agency or control. And over time, I learn through experience and through mentorship and etc that I can be bigger than those emotions, that I can actually use them, they can serve me, and so I go from being smaller than them to bigger than them.
yeah,
In a similar way, you can do the same thing with any of the domains of life. As you know, I have 6 domains I like to think about: the physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, and moral. Ultimately, I don't want my moral fate to be so far out of my hands that I have no idea if I'm going to do a good thing or a bad thing later on today.
yeah,
I'd like that to be more and more in my hands. I'd like to go from having an external locus of control with respect to all 6 of those to having an internal locus of control, going from dependent to independent, to ultimately being someone who can support others in all 6 of those ways
yeah,
so that I'm dependable. It's, there is a risk of vanity. There is a risk of, but the problem is vanity will just knock me back down to size if I'm not on guard about
yeah,
it. So the move is to get to such a stable and independent place that I want to be a pleasure to people, but not be a people pleaser.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what you're describing in terms of emotional mastery, emotional equilibrium, and emotional intelligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to share one more thing too that just came up, and I want to let you keep doing the interviewer part, questioning and stuff. But um, just looking back, right? Like there's a concept called awe that I would love to share right now. and that's, I'm sure everyone knows what that is. Like when you're in awe, you're just like, oh, like you're just like, you're like, here's a great example. I'm blessed to be able to see lots of sunsets, right? And that's a moment in the day where kind of everything stops and you're just kind of in awe. And again, going back to that zoom out, right? That's a
Yeah.
great time in my day where I can see, oh my God, we're on a planet like rotating around that star right there.
Wild.
And how cool is that? And there's really no
Seriously.
judgment on it. It's just this moment of awe.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing that up because everything that we're talking about, and you know, I'm almost kind of in awe looking back on the work that I've done
Mhm.
for the 100 episodes, but like there's an awe there of all the information shared too. There's an awe
Absolutely.
of all the people and their stories and their journeys. There's an awe of what's to come next too. And I think, part of this project and part of this process has, it's almost like an invitation to be in awe more.
Hmm.
It's like, can I be in awe like throughout the day? Can I be in awe like even right now with you? Like I'm in
Yeah.
awe of like our collective energy and your specific energy and my specific energy and the higher power and what we're doing and maybe even the audience. I'm like, I don't know. I wanted to share that idea of awe because I think that's a really cool place to be, and it relates to emotional control, emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
being inspired, experiencing contrast. Can we even be in awe for the contrast? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to reflect on that in a
Yeah.
way that's going to seamlessly segue back into the
Okay.
interview.
All right.
Because what I'm hearing when I listen to you is also that awe is the root word for both awesome, which is so positive, and awful, which is
Yeah.
so terrible.
That's right.
And so awe is like an unconditional, almost like a non-contrast state.
That's right.
It's like the divine.
Yeah.
It's something like the unknown and unknowable, right? To be in awe of something is for it to just be so big,
Mhm.
so total, so complete that there's also like a flow state associated with it. We lose a sense of time, we lose a sense of self, we lose a sense of space. It's just right now, and it floods us.
Yeah.
What you said at the very end, that there is an awe even for contrast, an
Yeah.
awe even for not getting your way. And one of the things we discussed in our preparation for this, as the backbone for what we were going to discuss, is contrast and uninspired states.
Yeah.
Because you talk about incoherence and
Hmm.
the uninspired athlete. So we want to think about what that means physically, mentally, emotionally, and then also, if it's possible, for being uninspired to lead to a breakthrough, if that's ever happened to you or anyone you're familiar with.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick moment to share my new music, an instrumental track called Small Waves featuring Brian Schwartz on trumpet and yours truly on acoustic guitar. And this music is very much inspired by the ocean and specifically watching small waves crash on each other. When I look at the ocean and watch small waves, I'm able to kind of tap into that flow state, and hopefully, this music is reflective of that. You can find all the links to the music below in the description, and I would love to hear from you if you like the music and you're able to tap into that flow state as well. Let me know. Stay inspired, y'all, and keep exploring that creativity. Man, you're so good at this, Kaveh. You're so good. You're doing great.
Best foot forward.
I would love to share about being uninspired because that was kind of the spark to get me going on the book, right? This idea of writing a book about the inspired athlete, which is this energy, I believe, that's inside of all of us that wants to breathe and move, right? There's a whole inspired competitor aspect to that for sure. But if you just leave that aside for a second, the inspired athlete wants to breathe and move and explore the body and really celebrate the physical, right? Um, there was a moment in my life where I was on the contrast side of that, right? Like I grew up being an athlete, I grew up moving, and I'm blessed to have athletic talent. Um, there was a moment in my life where I just was like completely uninspired by
Hmm.
my own athletic ability, and I was uninspired to explore it. I was uninspired to use it. I was
Right.
uninspired, and perhaps even going down that road even more, like anxiety and depression, right? I was kind of,
No,
there was a moment in my life where I tapped into that. I
no,
didn't like it looking back,
no.
but in that moment, I was like feeling sorry for myself,
Right.
super insecure, um, fearful. I mean, I can go on and on about being uninspired, but that is kind of why I wrote that book, because
Yeah.
I had this like realization that the inspired athlete, that energy, I could tap into that just as much as I tap into the uninspired.
Yeah.
I could tap into the flip. What's the
Yeah.
flip to uninspired? Well, it's inspired.
Yeah.
It's like the go for it, like you and I like to connect on. The go, like let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
energy. I could tap into that and I could like create momentum there. And I think that's a really cool place to explore right now, because that led me, that realization led me to be like, whoa, what if I
Yeah.
could write a book about that?
Yeah.
What if I could share that with, and maybe hope that if someone caught themselves on the uninspired athlete and the
Yeah.
anxiety road and even maybe the depression road, maybe if they caught a little bit of the inspired athlete energy, that could help them
Yeah.
pivot back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The image that just came to mind as you were sharing that was that it doesn't have to be this long, hard journey from a place of uninspiration to inspiration. It actually can be instantaneous. And there is something about awe which unites those two apparently distant states.
Yeah,
The state of being uninspired, even suicidal, even homicidal. If you're
yeah,
feeling crazy, if the world is driving you mad and you're
yeah,
uninspired and you're feeling like fighting, you're feeling like quitting,
yeah,
but there's a piece of you that's like, I don't want to feel this way.
yeah,
That's an opening.
yeah.
That's a curiosity. And that to me is synonymous with the awe, the openness, the curiosity, which was the first lesson that you brought up.
Hmm.
Curiosity, openness, humility, interest, awe. That from that zoomed out place, oh, well, the distance between being uninspired and inspired is nothing. It's like a wrinkle in time, right? That you could collapse time by zooming out from it. Now, all of a sudden, something that seemed like it's going to take so long, or these two states that seemed like they were so far apart from each other, are actually just right next to each other in the scheme of things. If you zoom out in the way that you do, you do it from Los Angeles to California to it could also be from our emotional states. You could zoom out from sadness to see it alongside fear, to see it alongside anger, to see all these things on a the emotion wheel. If you've seen like the emotion wheel, they're all right next to each other.
That's
And
right.
there's actually, in principle, no reason you can't just go from one to the other. There's just momentum and inertia and familiarity with those uninspired states. And here's something people don't usually like to talk about. There's actually a payoff. There's actually a payoff to being in the uninspired states,
Mm.
which I'd be very interested to discuss with you if you're interested here to think about what it means for those uninspired states to be a kind of protest behavior, a kind of temper tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a couple things here. Um, I want to make sure I give credit to Rich Lamborn, who was one of my early guests, who I asked about this idea of inspired athlete. And if you're in that state, like going back to the how, like how do you get out of that? And I love what he said, which is like sometimes all it takes is to just get up and move,
Right.
right? Like that movement. Like, and going back to my journey when I explained that I was in the uninspired state, I didn't even want to get off the couch for like
Yeah.
an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And if that's relatable to someone right now who's listening, it's like if you just get up and take a walk and get a little blood flow and try to tap into that inspired athlete energy, because that's what that is. Just a little blood flow, a little
Hmm.
movement, a little
Makes me want to move
breathing.
right now. Yeah.
Right, right. And because the inspired athlete energy wants to move. It wants to move.
Yeah,
So just a
circulate. It
little
wants to
movement
circulate.
wants to circulate, right? Which we discussed, and we can get into that more. But like, I think that's key to anyone who's dipping into those lower states, those lower emotional states, like the just a little movement. And I know lots of people have shared this, but I'll share this right now. Walking has been a life and game changer for me, right? Just walking, and if you can do it without the phone, I know it's hard for me to do sometimes. I like to consume a lot of cool
Come on,
inspiration,
Aaron, you're making it too hard.
but even that, like to just walk and breathe and find yourself in awe for a tree,
Yeah.
or no, find yourself in awe for some nature, find yourself in awe for anything, for even your own, even the way you can track heel toe,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
find like the way that you can, the way the body, like the body, doctor, the body's incredible, right? And I think
instantaneous.
that's another beautiful lesson that I've learned with this whole journey. I've talked to so many physical therapists and trainers, of course doctors, but like the human body isn't, like, it's a miracle. And the inspired athlete is really aware. The inspired athlete, again, it's an energy that you tap into, but you're really aware of like all the body mechanics and the cells even. I know it sounds weird to
Yeah.
be aware of cells, but like
I love it.
it's doable. You can do that.
Let's do it.
And
Let's be
like
aware
the
of those
the
cells.
and and like the awareness of like a seamless parasympathetic breathing technique, right? Like these all these awarenesses, even awareness itself, right? The awareness of I am, we can get into that too. But I just wanted to make sure I said that when we dip into those lower states, if we can just start to move, like Rich Lamborn shared, who's an Olympic gold medalist, he's been at the highest level of athletic achievement. For him to just say that was a super cool realization and a light bulb moment of like what you said too, of like if you're in those states, maybe it's just it seems far away when you're there.
Yeah.
How do I get to joy if I'm in depression? It seems
Yeah.
like it's like a long road to get to, but sometimes it just takes a walk.
And I might suggest that of an even shorter step, which is still very possible to do very fast, is just neutrality. If you can go from negativity to neutrality, it is what it is,
Yeah.
then you're that much closer to positivity, right? To me, what we're talking about ultimately is a life or death matter. Now, life and death, just like wealth and so many other things, are non-binary. That's why we say if something is attractive to us, it makes us come alive, it's a turn on. It feels like it's good for us. When
Yeah.
something feels like it's bad for us, it's a turn off.
Right.
And that doesn't have to be sexualized. That can be platonic, and it can be something that we want to turn each other on. We want to activate each other.
Yeah.
And there are so many things in life, in social media, in the ether that are subtly deactivating us, turning us off, depressing us. And that's part of the game,
Yeah.
right? Whoever's doing it, whatever force is out there, listen, it's not that it's not fair. It's just how it is. See how I went from negative to neutral? It's not
Yeah.
that it's not fair. It's just how it is. And then I can even say, and I'm glad it's that way because that's contrast. That's something that I can now work with. I can play with that. That's a very interesting problem to engage with, isn't it? For someone who has interest, curiosity, humility, openness, the question of how am I being influenced into being deactivated and turned off subliminally? And how can I team up with people like my friend Aaron Wexler to counteract that effect on myself and on the people in our audience? Well, I could
Yeah.
spend my whole life doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You just um you just helped me think of another thing that I would love to share right now, which is, I wrote about self-talk, but the podcast has helped me create questions, that going back
Yeah,
to
those
curiosity,
are
right?
tools. Those are
And
strong
like
tools.
and the questions don't have to be directed all the time outwardly like this, in this way, like on Zoom, on podcasting, or even other people. They can be like internal questions. And I think really high achievers and great thinkers and thought leaders even, Ask themselves really good questions throughout the day. I think that's been
Right.
really key for me to realize as I explore people, right? Explore
Hmm.
what what really makes them go from those uninspired states to those inspired states, or from an inspired state to greatness even, or from greatness to mastery, right? And all
Yeah.
these like level ups. It's a good question, like a self question, like how can I be a better interviewer right now? How can I be a better listener right now? How can I be more relatable right now? Or even a kind of a prayer question, like please help me in this process of being the best interviewer I can be.
What do you want from me? What am I to do in this condition, in this situation? That's a good question. What's my next move? Tell me. I'm listening. I'm looking for a sign.
How can I best serve?
Yeah,
How can I show up in the best version of me that will allow me to serve myself as well as my neighbor?
that's right. Because I think one of the most dangerous fallacies that we often fall into is that my success has to come at the expense of someone else.
Right. Right. I just think we have to evolve out of that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if we prep for this or not, but I like part of my mission with this whole thing, and actually as I move to the next 100, is to explore more of the new human and the new earth. To me, what
Nice.
that means is like, how do we create heaven on earth right now,
Hmm.
here in
Hmm.
my life?
Hmm.
How do I do that? How do I become that new human? How do I almost accelerate my own evolution right now?
Yeah.
And in doing that, how can I elevate of the frequency of the planet, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a the kind of kind of like a driving factor for like the next 100 shows and 1,000 shows even.
And I think that I can hear some of the naysayers in the audience already, people from the scientific community, the cynical community. And the only thing that I would ask is, do you not believe in evolution? Right? And what are the constraints on your belief in that? There's a lot of people who don't think humanity is going anywhere. A lot of
Mm.
people who think that things are just as bad now as they were 500 years ago. And I'm very interested in where that lands a person in life, where that mindset takes you.
I think that's a great point. And what I would say to that is going back to the game. It's a game. It's all a
Yeah.
game. And all these things that we're talking about, they're beliefs.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
beliefs.
exactly.
They're
Exactly.
like
Their opinions.
their opinions and beliefs, and you and I happen to really feed off each other's beliefs. We like
Yeah.
it. We play tennis with each other's
Yeah.
beliefs. But like the whole podcasting space is like this exploration of ideas. Um, I recently had Terrence Howard on, as you know, and
Congratulations to both of you.
yeah, and thank you. And he's been blasted for his beliefs about right or wrong and all this
Come on,
stuff. And
guys.
I think that's a good lesson
Yeah.
on the bigger picture with the zoom out idea,
Yeah.
which is like I'm not that interested in right or wrong. I really it
Right.
doesn't it doesn't interest me. What interests me is sharing of ideas and
Yes.
going to evolution, right? That's what this show has been about for me. It's been an evolving process for my own life, but also too, which is like this. It's like a party of ideas.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like
That's right.
I'll share this idea, you share that idea. Maybe we agree, maybe we don't agree. That's all good
Uh-huh.
because it's just a sharing of ideas, and that's why like a lot of my intros that I do for the show, I'm like within the game is all about sharing inspiration because
That's right.
that's really what it is. It's not about proving that I know more than you or like I'm right and you're wrong. I know a lot of people do that. I don't. I think part of the evolution is to almost go past that, you know?
I want to suggest that it's not very scientific, it's not very spiritual, and it does not lend itself to success to behave in that way,
Yeah.
to be compulsively confrontational and compulsively divisive.
Yeah.
That to me is just a symptom of confusion. That to me is a symptom of a mindless way of thinking and
Yeah.
behaving that most of us do most of the time. Most of us, most of the time, are acting based on our conditioning. And so long as that leads to a life that is good, then by all means, continue to run your program. But once you start bumping into hard objects, Once you start getting a sense that there are things in your life that you'd like to change, that's when it's time to zoom out. As I like to say, get over yourself in the
Right.
most loving way possible. I want to
Hmm.
get over myself, as in overcome myself. I want to get under myself, as in understand myself. I want to
Mm.
get ahead of myself, get behind myself, and get all around myself. So now we're talking really about a spiritual perspective from outside myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
outside myself. And that way there's more room for others. If I'm not full of myself, then there's more room for others.
I love where you're taking this conversation, Doctor. This is so great.
Well, the thing I want to talk about next is really being a champion because you don't
Mm.
get to be a champion on accident, right? A champion has done that. They understand themselves, they overcome themselves, they get ahead of themselves, they get behind themselves. And so you've had a lot of champions that you've known very closely and you've interviewed them here. So what is a true champion? Is it the actual success? Is it the mindset? How is a champion born? Is a champion raised? Tell me a little bit about that.
Tunnel vision.
Uh-huh. There you go. I was not expecting that answer, but I love it.
Me either. But that's the first thing that came to mind, right? The champions that I've interviewed have just this unwavering tunnel vision of they know exactly where they want to go. They they actually know most of the how on how to get there. And the parts that they don't know, they know, they know that they will figure it out.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like a unwavering knowing
yeah,
that this
yeah,
is where I'm going.
yeah.
This is how I'm going to get there. And this is how I will figure it out when I don't know how to get there.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. This is the attitude I'm going to have when I know and when I don't know.
Yeah. And it's almost like Neville Goddard when he says, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, right? It's this
Beautiful.
assumption that I'm going to win. I know I'm going to win. I don't
I've
quite know
already
when.
won.
What's that?
I've already won.
Yeah, I've already won, right? Assuming it's just it's embodiment. Embodiment is a great word for all this stuff, right? Because these are all, like we said, beliefs and concepts and ideas, but it becomes real when you create embodiment. So embodiment for me for a champion is like using that tunnel vision to embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled, which is winning, and then using that as inspired fuel for inspired action.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What this is reminding me of is really science. That's what a scientist does. They have confidence, even faith, in there being a breakthrough. And that's what fuels their extreme level of discipline, their extreme level of rigor, their tunnel vision, as you're describing. And like you said, we don't exactly know where the breakthrough is going to happen, how it's going to be. When you're in the competition, in the game,
Yeah.
it's all chaos.
Yeah.
And something happens. The champion arises and emerges out of that.
And also too ability to manifest, I brought up manifesting before as kind of a core pillar or theme that I really really like to explore, but the champions I know, whether they believe in that word or not, because that
It's
word's been thrown around so much
very
now.
charged.
Yeah, but that is part of it. It's
Yeah.
almost like, okay, I know where I want to go. I can see the path to get there. Now I'm going to speak it out. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then that all that allows kind of a conspired a conspiring universe, right? Things will
Beautiful.
happen, right? People will come in at the right time. Opportunities will present themselves at the right time because you're it's almost like this is coming to mind. Dr. Joe Gallenberger, another doctor, who his idea is liquid luck. He wrote a book called Liquid Luck, which is like you can create your own luck.
Yeah.
Luck is not some external thing like, oh, that person's so lucky. No, they created their own luck. They manifested their own luck, And I think champions do that inherently and really, really aware champions, not just in sports, but champions of life and business
Yes.
do that
Yes.
very, very specifically and on purpose.
there's something very powerful here that we're starting to touch that I want to get your appetite for in terms of really what we're talking about is power. We're talking about the ability to affect reality,
Right.
to generate outcomes, to take things that are possible, make them probable, and then railroad them into being inevitable.
That's right. That's right.
And that is everyone's right to do. Now,
Mm,
the freer of a country you're in, for instance, or the freer of an environment you're in, like the internet is a very free environment, arguably even more free than America, the more there's a leveling of the playing field and a lowering of the barrier of entry for accomplishing exactly this thing that we're talking about creating events, moving people, interacting with hearts and minds, which is, to me, what you're describing as the new humanity, heaven on
mm,
earth, which I recently heard a great quote, which was that heaven is already here. The future
yeah.
is already here.
Yeah.
It's just unevenly distributed.
Ooh.
And so our work is to study the ways in which luck, as you said, is engineered.
Yeah.
Ideally, not at the expense of other people, so that my success isn't necessarily on the back of other people, so that really we can have a rising tide lift all ships. And now we have this conversation happening on both the left and the right. There's a left vision of abundance and a left vision of scarcity. There's a right vision of abundance and a right vision of scarcity. And I see that the left and right visions of abundance are going to need to start coming together and cooperating for us to move into what you're describing.
That to me is what Terrence is talking about when he talks about supersymmetry.
Same.
A lot of physicists are like, that's not supersymmetry. Well, no, this is what he's talking about. He's talking about the coming together, what you're saying. And I completely agree. And I think that there's a blueprint for actualization,
Yeah.
not just self-actualization, because that's a huge part of, I think, the goal in this life is to actualize the self,
Yeah.
but also to actualize our desired outcomes, like you're talking about, right? Like putting all this stuff together and creating actualization.
And this brings back that word authentic because of the relationship it has to the word authorship
Mm-hmm.
and the word
Mm-hmm.
authority.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of words that get a bad rap, like the word authority. Like people usually don't like that word because a lot of people have problems with authority. However, if you want to be successful, authority, authorship, authenticity, all these things need to start becoming your friend because you want to be the author, you want to be the agent. We together want to write our story. We want to write our story together because the opposite of that is to have it written for us by mere circumstance. And that's
Yeah,
the opposite, of engineering.
and there's just a co-creation part of this whole thing, right? Like this whole conversation that we're having, this whole project of the podcast, books. I mean, I got another book coming too, and even music, creativity, like all this. What the concept is co-creation,
Is
and
your book The Inspired Coach? The
yeah, the
Inspired Create,
inspired
however, I'm
coach
excited for that.
coming up soon. But this concept of co-creation, I definitely want to make sure we touch on that because yes, we have the ability to self-actualize. Yes, we can create our own luck. Yes, we can manifest things. But there's this other unseen force, this invisible force, the higher power, God, the universe.
Huh?
Michael Sandler sometimes he jokes about the wording of this, the big cheeseburger in the sky. I love that. I love
He's the
that because
best.
it's playful, right? It's whatever the word is, but there is this force that's, in my opinion, this co-creative force,
Yeah.
right? And I just want to make sure that I don't forget that
Mhm.
ever,
Yeah.
because sometimes the ego can take over, and again we can touch more into the ego stuff, but sometimes the ego can be a little louder
Oh,
in
I want to say most of the
yeah.
time. I want to say
Yeah.
that's the game. I want to say that so much of this world has been designed to make us forget the big cheeseburger in the sky and to bring us down into what we call the mundane. The mundane
Yeah.
just means the worldly. It doesn't mean the worldly is a bad place, but it is a place that makes us feel some type of way.
Yeah.
And it's not the way that we feel when we are in awe. It's not a religious experience that we feel when we're in resistance or in conflict about paying the bills.
Yeah.
And so for me, the uniting of the divine and the mundane is really where you and I think Mr. Howard, are all trying to go to and to lead other people into, which there's been whispers of it throughout this whole conversation, which is that everything I'm staring at right now, I could be in awe of. I
Yeah.
could be in awe of myself without succumbing to the vanity that we're usually so concerned about. Oh, you can't be in awe of yourself. What, you think you're so full of yourself? No, I'm in awe that the human being is the most advanced piece of high tech gadgetry. It's a neurohormonal, electromagnetic, classical, and quantum computational instrument with arms and legs that can feel, you know, taste chocolate ice cream, see a sunset, make love. It's a magical and commit genocide. It's a crazy thing that we have, and we better learn how it works from
Yeah.
the inside out because we are we have the power of gods in our hands, and we better not take that lightly.
Yeah. Or even hug a tree. I actually heard Terrence say that on Bill Maher when he was on Bill Maher podcast. He was like, yeah, sometimes if you just hug a tree, you can actually feel that connection. And as we get more and more into tech and AI and how AI is going to kind of, we're going to get to AHI, which is artificial human intelligence. And then we're going to get to ASI, which is artificial super intelligence. And then AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which is like this massive integration of AI into daily life. It's already
Yeah,
happening now, but
yeah,
I think we should feel implored
yeah.
to go hug a
It's like,
tree.
hey man, you check out Terrence's outfit on that show too, and he was kicking some
Right, right.
sweet threads,
Let's go, Terrence.
some sweet threads.
Doctor, let's take a quick pause because I drink a lot of coffee. Give me one
Yeah,
second.
let's do it. So, we're talking about winning and losing and being a good sport. And to me, where this really takes us is ultimately spiritual growth and universal awareness. There have been hints and allusions to that throughout the conversation. And a real sort of direct question about this is what's one synchronicity or intuitive moment that shaped your decisions?
That's a great question. Um, you mean like during the podcast, like
Hmm.
during the
Hmm.
podcast?
Yeah,
Man, I don't know. I don't know if I can
fair.
pinpoint one. I think you know I'll say this. There's been a few moments throughout the podcast journey, the last 100, where after I get done with the recording, and I'm sure this will happen after today as well, where I'll keep the phone on do not disturb and I'll go for that walk and I'll
Yeah,
reflect and I'll just, there's like this moment of being proud. I will say that maybe that's the ego coming through, but I want to share that because I am proud. I am proud
yeah.
of looking back. I'm proud of the courage. Let's mention that word too, right? Because there's
Thank you.
this takes courage, man. Um, to
Takes heart.
anyone, what's that?
It takes heart. The word
Heart.
courage comes from the word heart.
Yeah, yeah.
It
It
takes
takes
heart.
courage, and so I think there's a moment of being proud. If I could share that as a moment of like synchronicity, right? Because so many things have to happen for this to happen.
Yeah.
We have to be in good places for us to connect
Yep.
in our personal lives and professional lives, and
Yeah.
we have to. Our voice has to be. We have to be healthy. we have to basically receive some downloads, and we have to have the courage enough to put it on paper and create a theme and to create an outline. All these, and then the tech has to work. So all these things have to happen. And when they do happen and everything lines up, yeah, there's a moment of like, hell yeah, hell yeah, I did that, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to make that come off as like egotistical, but I think being proud of the work of interviewing people and exploring all these concepts and more, and making space,
Yeah.
making space for this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a huge accomplishment that I feel proud of. I really hope to inspire someone else who hears that and is like, what can they make space for? What can
Yeah.
you make space for in your life that fires you up and feels alignment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What what can I do? How can I create more alignment?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's coming through to answer that question when I look back on a moment of synchronicity. It's like a walk after a recording, looking back and just feeling good about it.
Yeah. The place that takes me is that could be a little controversial for a secular society, but the hack that I've found for being proud and inspired by the work that I'm doing, the work that you're doing, is to say that we're doing God's work,
Yeah.
that we're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between playing God, where we're caught up in our own ego and dictatorial with it, compared to humbly serving and helping make the world a better place, grow, maintain, expand,
Yeah.
trim, and prune as necessary. But that's when we're not alone. It's
Yeah.
not just about me.
Right.
We're making room, as you say, for things besides our own neurosis, our own selfishness, our own insecurities. And that's been a life changer for me to commit myself to something bigger than myself,
Yeah.
be it my family, my wife, my daughter, any community I'm involved in, my patients, etc. That's when I think it's very safe to be proud because there's a safeguard or protection against it becoming about arrogance and condescension.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I want to say next is hopefully relatable to someone in any service industry, a coach, a teacher, actually anyone who gets paid for time, paid for their time. What's
Yeah.
cool about this project is that these conversations stay forever. And that was a big light bulb moment for me when I realized that like I wanted to get into this space. I feel like so much of my athletic career has been fleeting, right? These moments come and go, whether they're great moments or whether they're
True,
not
true,
moments.
true.
They come and go. And when you win, you get a ring or a banner. And those
Yeah.
two things
Stay.
signify greatness, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't win, which is most players and most teams, there's nothing. You
Yeah.
might have videos or Instagram clips of of some cool plays, but like there's so many moments in life that can feel fleeting. What's cool about this project and this industry is that this conversation will be recorded and will be forever in the ethos of life. It will be out there. To me, that was such a cool realization. Pardon the interruption. Just wanted to give a quick shout out of gratitude and recognition to you, the viewer and listener. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this podcast journey over the last 5 years. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for being here. My ask is that you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if it resonates, leave a comment. And if it really resonates, share this with someone. All those things really do help the channel and helps us spread more inspiration and more love and more gratitude and more curiosity to more people. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate you guys. Much love. Stay inspired.
Well, on that expansive note, I think you better, if you please, tell us please plug and promote the inspired creator. What's
Mm.
that all about?
Thank you. Um, yeah, you know, like everything that we've been talking about and more, right? Almost even more is like the sharing part.
Yeah.
Um, I want to help people with. I want to help kind of like mind dump
Yes.
all this knowledge that I've been able to accumulate um, through the podcast, but I want to help others with their inspired ideas. I want to help others with their articulation. I want to help others with their visibility, you know? And so my way of doing that is to create this community called the Inspired Creator. And I want to help people become creativepreneurs.
Yes.
That's the whole idea, right? Because we haven't even really touched on music, but music has been such a big part of my creative life. And it's actually really enhanced my other areas, my athletics, my coaching, podcasting, and it's not easy to be able to like balance all these things or compartmentalize. But I know how to do that. I've been able to tap into something called the content loop, which again, we can
Mm.
talk more about that too. But that content loop is like this invisible. That's
Exactly.
kind of
Exactly.
a cool theme for this show. This
Yes.
invisible loop of content, and I've been able to kind of tap into that and create my loop. And I want to help others do that. So anyway, the Inspired Creator is it's an online membership that I'm going to be launching very soon. Maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be launched, and I'll leave a link in the description. But it's all about how to help people become creativepreneurs.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah. Well, I need it. I need it because the way I'm likely to describe this is that life can feel soul crushing. Life can feel soul crushing. But the solution to that is for there to be a channel.
Yeah.
If my soul is being crushed, that just means it's feeling the pressure and it needs to be squeezed rather than crushed. So I want it to be squeezed and shot out like a cannon. So I just want to thank you, for instance, for inviting me here because this is an expressive, a creative and expressive experience for me to participate in this way on your show. It's makes my life feel less soul crushing. It makes me feel more expansive, more free, bigger, as you described, rather than just a plaque or a banner or even nothing. If I lose an athletic event, this is something that I'm going to remember forever. It's also going to be memorialized on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we hurt anyone in the production of this episode. And so I can only see on balance good coming from it. And I think that's another very powerful theme that we've been reflecting back on throughout this entire episode.
100%. And thank you so much for committing your time and energy and life force to this show and to this community, right? Because that word is like a driving factor moving forward. I want to create more community. I know you do too. We want to create community so that more and more people can enter our orbit, but also that we can play with. I want to play tennis with more people. I want to
Another
help them.
another
Yeah.
Yeah, another theme we haven't really described, but what it is this is an investment. You
Yeah.
offered me to commit my life force, my vitality, my time, energy, attention here, and it's a good return on investment
Yeah.
because I get so much from in return from putting in this time and effort. So
I love to hear that. Thank you so much. But take some time to plug all your stuff real quick. Your socials, your websites. I know you already did, but do more. Tell people
yeah,
how they can
yeah.
best connect with you and support you.
So I think the best place will just be itstherapeutic.com. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful domain name. I'm really glad I got it. I'm surprised it was available, and I'm just going to put everything up there. It's going to be a community in the same way that you described the inspired creator. I'm calling it asphalt, a system for living tough, because I'm interested in conditioning. I'm interested in anti-fragility so that we don't have the experience of what doesn't kill me makes me weaker, because that is a common experience. What doesn't kill me makes me weaker. That's called PTSD. But on the other hand, we have PTG, post traumatic growth, which is the cliche and very true quote that what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So, what's the caveat? It's the mindset. If I'm resentful and bitter and angry about this thing that happened to me, if I'm full of self pity about this thing that happened to me, well, I stay a victim and I have post traumatic stress. I become smaller and smaller as a result of it. I become contracted. But remembering that whether it's physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, or moral, overloading myself in the right way actually leads to me becoming bigger, committing to things like this, investing time, energy, attention, money into the right things in the right way with the right attitude, intelligently, mindfully, actually leads to all those things growing, right? Making a sacred sacrifice. Those two words are related in their association with divinity. This is, for me, the intersection of science, success, and spirituality, all of which have a very close association with health, with vitality, with positive sum game theory, and with, like we said, the rising tide lifting all ships. So I want the best for you. I want the best for myself. I don't think that the best for you has to come at a cost to me or vice versa. And that's what I think makes us want the best for our audience as well. And so I look forward to seeing people at itstherapeutic.com and in Asphalt, a system for living tough.
I love it, man. I really appreciate you, Kaveh, Doctor Kaveh, and I appreciate your soul, man. You got an old soul, you know. I think
Thank
that's why we've been able to connect so well over the years. We go back a long time now, and yeah, we I think we're both two old souls just playing tennis, man. We're playing
That's it,
tennis,
man.
and we're trying to invite more and more people so we can expand the game.
Let's bring them on in.
Yeah.
Get in here, fam.
All right, we're gonna close out again. I appreciate you, Dr. Kaveh. To everyone else, much love. Stay inspired. Thank you.